My name is Tim Stewart, aka TalkManTalk, speaking to inspire. And this is my story. I kind of wanted to share my story with you so that you could learn a little bit about who I am and why I do what I do today. I'm originally from North Carolina. I grew up on a 500-acre farm, and it seems almost as if I was working when I landed here. Hard work was instilled, and we had 9 turkey houses, a hog house. We grew corn, and my grandfather was a very wealthy man. And back in those days, that was kind of unheard of. So I had a lot of responsibility as a young person, but I was also exposed to quite a bit at a very early age. On that farm, not only did we have a general store, but behind that was a kitchenette, and then you walk down a hallway and there was a club, a disco club, and then behind that was a motel. So on the weekends, a lot of people came out to the club, and I got a chance to see what a lot of older adults did, even people who were well respected in our community. I saw them live a different lifestyle. My life was a little abnormal because when the other kids came home from school, I had to come home and go to work. At the end of the day, at night, when we were eating dinner, the question wasn't, how well did I do in school today? The question was, did you get all of your work done? I worked very hard, and as I grew up, I was introduced to some things. My playmates were, at 11, 12 years old, my playmates were 40, 45, 50-year-old men. That's who I hung out with. And so I grew up very quickly. My grandfather put a lot of responsibilities on me at an early age, and I got introduced to cigarettes, and everybody that I knew, my grandfather, my father, my mother, all of the people that I associated with, they smoked cigarettes. So it was quite normal that I would smoke cigarettes. Of course, they told me not to, but that didn't matter. I saw one thing, and it was different from what they told me. And I was introduced to marijuana by a family member at 12 years old, and I ran off with that. I think I had maybe ADHD, as they call it, but of course back then they didn't have Ritalin, and I was just such a hyper little kid. They probably didn't know what to do with me. I constantly stayed in trouble. I didn't even know why I did the things that I did. But I did well in school. I was always, pretty smart in school, A-B student, and I never really studied. I didn't really have time, or didn't take the time, and I wasn't asked about it. My grades were okay, and so, there wasn't a lot of discussion about my grades. But, when I started smoking marijuana, I smoked it every day. All day, every day. I was probably addicted to it from the very start. And when it came time for me to graduate high school, I had taken college prep courses. I had some great teachers in high school that thought a lot of me. They thought I had a lot of potential, but I don't think they really knew how to connect with me. I was so far advanced, at an early age. At 16 years old, my mom was telling me that, I had lived the life of a 30-year-old man because I was just so advanced, so much more advanced than, my peers. And, I had taken these college prep courses for the challenge, and I said, I don't want to go to college because I don't want to have to come home during the summer and work on the farm. So I took the ASVAB test, and I went into the military. I scored high enough on the test to get into the Air Force, and, my family was excited about that, and I was getting away from the farm. My uncle was probably my hero. And, I wasn't really close to my dad growing up. I didn't want to be like my dad. My dad worked day and night, and, he was dirty. And my uncle was, he had been in the Marines, in the military, and now he lived in New York, and he drove bright, shiny cars, and he had pretty women, and he had a lot of money in his pocket, and I wanted that. I didn't want what I saw my dad doing. And he took he took a liking to me, and he shared some things with me, and he taught me about what it was like to be a man. But he also shared some things with me that I probably didn't need to know at that age, and probably even still now. But anyway, I was introduced to cocaine, and just before I went in the military, and of course once I was in the military, that life, I was no longer connected to that environment, and so I did some things different. I went overseas. I spent 2 years in Europe, and got a chance to see, from a country boy going to a whole nother country that I didn't even speak the language. It was a eye-opening experience. I enjoyed being in the military, and then I came back home. I had an opportunity to come back home, and so my intention was to marry my high school sweetheart, and of course that didn't work out. And what happened was the drugs came back into play, and I started hanging out in that arena, and hanging out with some folks that I probably shouldn't have been hanging out with, and crack came on the scene during that time, and I experimented with crack, and it just led from from the marijuana to the cocaine and now the crack. And even though I was what they call a functioning addict, I still went to work early on, and then at one point, I just kind of stopped being responsible, and the drugs and alcohol kind of just took control over my life. And after going into treatment 11 times, I found myself at the end of the road. My mom had told me, son, she said, son, if you continue to live the life that you're living, you're not going to make it. And I want you to know that I bought a $10,000 insurance policy to bury you with. And my dad didn't want to have anything to do with me. He was just so embarrassed. I didn't know how to stop doing what I was doing. I thought that, the drugs and the alcohol were the problem, and I found out that they were not the problem eventually. But early on, I can't tell you how many times I said, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to do this anymore. I quit. And somehow I would find myself caught back up in the grips of active addiction. And I had gotten married, and I thought that would change. We had a daughter, and I would clean up for periods of time, but I would always seem to go back. And after, my wife and I separated, and we went through a divorce, my whole world kind of crashed on me. And, I had a grandmother that was the person that gave me the light. She believed in me, and she said, and I couldn't even see it, she said, God's going to bring you out. And I kind of get choked up about it now because I couldn't see a way out. With tears in her eyes, she would say, God's going to bring you out. And I didn't really know what that meant. I grew up in the church, but she had a relationship with God like I had never seen before. And eventually I made a decision. I said, you know what? I need to do something different. I need to get away from everybody. I need to leave because I can't seem to stop. And one of the most, I guess, motivating factors was, my daughter. And for some reason, I did not want to grow up and my daughter be told, your dad is a crackhead. That was really one of the motivating factors that I made the decision, I'm going to give this thing a shot. Now, I've been in treatment 11 times. And I said, let me just get away. Let me just try to do it a different way. And I bought a one-way ticket to California. And I was living in New York at the time. I bought a one-way ticket to California, and I said, let me just go to the other side of the world, it seems. And I got scared. On the bus, I started flipping through the tickets, and I'm looking at the different places that the bus is going to stop, and I said, I looked at Kansas City and I said, wow, maybe Kansas City. And I said, nah, I don't know about Kansas City. And the bus stopped in Indianapolis. And when we were ready to leave, we got on a different bus. And on the top of the bus, it had St. Louis. And I said, St. Louis? I said, Fred Sanford always talked about going back to St. Louis. I said, that's where I'm going. And I arrived in St. Louis at 10 o'clock in the morning. I didn't have a plan. I had, at that time, about $10 in my pocket. I had 2 shirts with me and a couple pair of pants, and that was it. I didn't know a soul here. I had never been here, and I didn't have a plan. I just said, okay, well, what am I going to do now? And I said, wait a minute. I'm a vet. There's a VA hospital here. Let me find a VA hospital. Maybe they have a program. I had been to a program through the VA in New York, and I guess, I said, well, let me try this, and I did. Well, I went up to the VA hospital. They didn't have a bed right away. They said, well, you have to stay in the shelter until a bed comes available to you. And so I went down to one of the Salvation Army's shelters, and it was crowded. They didn't have any beds available. So I had to sleep in the overflow on the floor. And it didn't matter to me. I was kind of numb at that point. I'm hurting. I'm in a lot of pain. And, not only this wasn't the first time I had actually been in a homeless shelter. I'm in a homeless shelter again, and I'm 1,500 miles away from all of my family, my friends. I'm 40 years old. I've been through a divorce. I don't have anything. I've been in the military. I've worked at IBM and UPS. I've been in corporate America, and my personal life just crushed my professional career, it seemed. And I came to a decision. I said, you know what? I don't know how to live here. I could accomplish great things. I was, always been a pretty intelligent person. I could, catch on to things real quick and excel in it very quickly. And I said, I don't know how to live here. And I said, let me find out, how does life work on planet Earth? How do I operate as a human being? Evidently, I don't know, because the results that I'm getting are not good results. Other people are not living like this. I've been around other people. I've been to the other side of the world, it seems, and nobody lives, I saw people living happy, productive lives. They had great careers, and they had homes, and they had cars, and they had wives and kids and dogs and cats. And I'm in a homeless shelter. And I started, doing some research. Got to a point, I spent 2 weeks in the homeless shelter, and a bed became available for me at the VA, and I was sitting in the chow hall, and then tears came in my eyes, and I said, I got mad. And I had grown up in the church, and I had heard of God. I didn't really know about God. And I just got mad, and I hit my hand on the table, and I said, God, why? Why does this keep happening to me? And God spoke to me, and I had never experienced that before. I'd heard my grandmother talk about it, but I didn't know what that was about. But I knew it was God. And he said to me, drugs and alcohol is not your problem. And I'm sitting there, and I'm saying, and it wasn't audible, it was inside of me in my spirit. And I said, well, what's my problem? He says, your way of thinking is your problem. And I said, well, how should I think? And he said, think in line with my word. He didn't say anything else. I said, wow, what just happened? But it was like, some life came into me. And so I got up from the chow hall, and I went to my room, and, in the hospital room, they have the bed. And then they have the little dresser drawer beside the bed, and it has a Bible in it. And I pulled that drawer out, and there was a Bible. And I said, you know what? I'm getting ready to read this Bible. After what had just happened, it was kind of like some hope came into me. And so I said, I'm getting ready to read this Bible. And I started in Genesis, and I got down to Genesis 1:11, and it said, and it reads, "And God said, let every seed produce after its own kind." And he spoke to me again, and he told me that words and deeds are seeds. My life changed. Not at that moment, but mentally, I had a new way. I had a new way to think. For some reason, I knew what that meant. I didn't know all of how to incorporate it in my life, but that was a different way of thinking for me. And I said, you know, growing up, I had been in the church, and my grandmother was a Pentecostal, and my mother was a Baptist, and my other grandmother was a Methodist. So I didn't really understand this church thing. They're reading the same book, but they're all doing it different ways. So I really didn't understand. So I said, you know, I need facts. You know, is this a true fact? And I thought, and I'm just kind of sharing with you what went through my mind. And I said, you know, they say this Bible is over 2,000 years old. I don't know that. They say, well, you know, this is the King James Version, and, you know, there's different writers that wrote the different books of the Bible, and Moses wrote the first 5 books. And I said, I don't know that. I said, but what I do know is that for 18 years when I was on that farm, every time we put corn seed in the ground, we got a corn crop. I know that to be a fact because I put a lot of corn seed in the ground, harvested a lot of corn. Every time we planted watermelon seeds in the dirt, we got watermelons. I said, this is a fact. I can roll with this. And that started transforming my way of thinking. And that's what's the problem. And, you know, since that time, I have, you know, made tremendous progress in my life. And, you know, I got connected with some programs, some 12-step programs. And, you know, I met my wife. And, you know, today, my life is totally different. And not that I have totally arrived, but I'm making progress, and I've made some tremendous progress. But the principles that I learned, that I've been learning over the past 10 years, has helped me position myself to help other people. And it is my passion today. I've created an identity called TalkManTalk, speaking to inspire. And what I thought could be the worst thing to happen to me actually turned out to be one of the best things that happened to me, because my lifestyle knocked me so low to a point in my life that I had to look for a different way. I would have probably struggled on to the bitter ends and never really, you know, had the opportunity like I'm having now to experience life on this level. I'm respected in the community, in my workplace. You know, and I carry myself in a way as I try to live my life as with a model character. You know, again, it doesn't mean that I'm perfect. I still have growth to learn, but no way am I living the way I used to live before. I have 5 mentors today, and these men are respectable, you know, men of integrity, men who operate from a spiritual standpoint, and they have an earnest desire to help me progress in my life. And I'm just so grateful for them. So with TalkManTalk, my goal is to travel to schools and to drug rehab centers and to homeless shelters, and to share my experience, strength, and faith with other people who struggle with similar dilemmas, and give them some hope and encourage and motivate them, and share some information with them, some principles that will help them make better decisions so that they can live a higher quality of life. You know, that's what's been given to me, what's so freely been given to me. I want to give it to other people. And it's such amazing. I count it such a blessing to have this opportunity. And really, there's a lot of hurting people in our society. There are a lot of people who have not been exposed to spiritual principles and, you know, really understanding how life works on planet Earth, and how we function as a human being. And so, my story is, I've heard, stories that are more horrifying than mine. I just seem to have a gift and a talent to share my story with the world, and to want to help other people, take their lives, their careers, their relationships to a higher level. When I go down to a homeless shelter and I speak and I'm talking to people in the shelter, of course, I have the compassion and the empathy, but I understand. I understand clearly what that feels like. I know the hurt and the humility, the degradation and the dereliction, the emotions that come along with being homeless, being addicted, going through a divorce, going through bankruptcy. These events, life-changing events, can cause emotions that a lot of people don't know how to handle. I feel fortunate because I know a lot of people that I associate with that never got the opportunity that I'm being given now. And I want to make the most of it. My life has a real strong purpose today. I am so grateful. I was counted out. My mom told me that I wasn't going to make it. When your mom tells you, hey, you're not going to make it, this is the woman that brought me here. And if she says that I'm not going to make it, I'm probably pretty close to not making it. But I'm so grateful for my grandmother who gave me that hope. And I want to be that hope for other people. And I want to do it from an unbiased standpoint. I share with people, principles, truths, not my truth. I didn't invent gravity. I didn't invent the laws of exposure. I didn't invent goal setting techniques. I have just learned how to incorporate them in my life. I've learned the mechanics. For an instance, I often ask people, well, what's one of your goals? And they'll say, I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to open my business. And I say, well, that's not really a goal, because a goal is specific, it's measurable, and it's time bound. And if those three components are not in there, then that's not really a goal. It may be a sincere desire. And it's little things like that I'm able to share with people so that they can get a different perspective. There's one thing that we don't talk about a lot in the public, and especially in our workplace, and it's called religion. And I try to stay away from religion. I really do. Now, I am a Christian. That's what I choose to, that's the faith that I choose. Every person is given that right to choose. But I'm more focused on the instructions. I call the Bible my manual. I drive an Infiniti now, and when I purchased that Infiniti, there was a manual in the glove compartment that was written by the manufacturer, Nissan. And in my belief system, God is the manufacturer of life on this planet Earth, and He also wrote a manual, and it's called the Bible. Now, there are a lot of stories in that Bible, but I focus on the instructions, because that's what has changed my life, is the instructions that I have found in that Bible. And so, that's just a little bit about my story, a little bit about me, and, why I'm on this mission as TalkManTalk, speaking to inspire. If you know someone who is going through, or you are going through, and you want to get a different perspective on what you're dealing with, I'm also a life coach, and I help people and clients take a different look at the situations that they're going through, and, try to share my experience and, what I've learned with them, so that they can, get through those troubled times. Rick Warren is a pastor who wrote the book called Purpose Driven Life, and I read that book, and I went through, the exercises of 40 days of transforming, a life and finding your purpose. And I love the information that I've read about living a purpose-driven life. And he said early on in his career, he used to think that life was hills and valleys. But now he's learned that life is like a set of railroad tracks. Whenever there's something that's not so good going in our lives, there's always something good going in our lives somewhere. And if we can focus on what's the good that's going in our lives, and we put more energy and focus into the positive and the good, then it will start diminishing the bad. And that's what I try to help people do, is find what's right in your life, what's good that's going on in your life. Relationships can take people for a toll today. Relationships can be very damaging. They can be great. My marriage today, I have a great marriage. It's not perfect, but I have a great marriage. And it's because my wife and I follow the instructions in the manual. We didn't create it. I told her that when we got married. I said, we're not getting ready to do this according to how you think or how I think or how you feel or how I feel. We are going to follow these instructions in this manual. And it has worked thus far. Now, that doesn't mean that we haven't had our differences, and that, we don't sometimes need, people who have successful marriages to kind of talk to us about situations we deal with. That's one thing I found out, is that if I want to be successful in anything that I want to do in life, all I have to do is find someone else who is successful at what I'm looking to do and do what they do. I can model it, I can, customize it, tweak it, but the foundations for success will be the same. From, running a restaurant to a barber shop to, having a great career, the principles of success are the same. And I help people identify which principles they need to understand and incorporate and execute in their lives. So again, my name is Tim Stewart, aka TalkManTalk. Feel free to contact me. You can visit my website at www.talkmantalk.com. You can reach me, contact me through my blog. I'm on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn, YouTube. You can see my videos. But I want to thank you for visiting my site today, and thank you for giving me the time to share my story with you. I'm TalkManTalk. Have a great day.